Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty RoundTable Radio Talk Show.
Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman live. Hard-hitting news the networks refuse to use. Kicks off now. Happy New Year to all of you. Now that we're back to the grind, it's truth-telling time. How's that, ladies and gentlemen? Lowell Nelson, campaignforliberty.org, is with me. He's the... Are you still the interim director, Lowell? Because it seems like you're that way for... I think it's permanent, my friend.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you get going and you just leave it the way it is because it's easier to leave alone than to change, I guess. But no, I still work with the Campaign for Liberty here in Utah. So I am the contact in Utah. If you want to work with Campaign for Liberty, then talk to me, and we'd be happy to welcome you to the fold.
Campaignforliberty.org doing a phenomenal job as always. Lowell Nelson, great ambassador for the cause. Anyway, great stuff happening, ladies and gentlemen. Now, there's so much to cover, so little time. Let's just dive right in. Lowell went on a big old trip. Thank heavens. Hope you had a break for the holidays and had a wonderful Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. But Lowell, always the man to take advantage of opportunities. He was traveling and he went kind of swung out of his way a little loop to visit a friend. Lowell?
Yep, it was Ken Cromar over in Colorado. We hadn't been over to see him there. And so at the end of our Christmas vacation, we swung over there. Drove up from New Mexico into Colorado and into Florence, where Ken is located right now, and so I got a four and a half hour visit with him on Saturday, just 2 days ago, Sam, and he wanted me to send you and give you a big hug and a heartfelt thanks to you, Sam, and to everyone basically who is praying for him and his good wife Barbara. Ken is in remarkably good spirits. He really does look great. I mean, we walked out and I saw him. We embraced. he is staying fit. I mean, he really does look great.
Oh, let me stop you. Hold on. They actually let you go to prison in this camp and literally meet him in person and give him a hug?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Wow. Whenever I go to prison and visit people, they have them behind one glass thing, and I have to sit on the other side, and it's all weird and crazy. And so that's at least a good sign, Lowell.
Yeah, it really is. It wasn't always that way. I mean, he spent over a year in a situation where you couldn't go and give him a hug. But it was quite interesting. The guard there said, "Look, if you can hug him at the beginning of your visit and at the end of your visit, but no touchy in between." You know, and so that was we tried to abide by that. He had a fellow inmate there with a camera, and so we took our picture together by the Christmas tree in the visitation room, and of course we
Hold
put
on,
our
inmates have cameras?
Yeah, this one did.
I've never heard of this before. This is a minimal security, or minimum security for sure, at least, right?
Yeah, it is. In fact, they have 4 structures there, 4 buildings, you might call them, 4 huge complexes in the same acreage, and one of the 4 is a maximum security. One is a super max. I can talk about that more in a second. And then they have a medium security and then a very minimal security. And Ken's in the minimal security one, which means that you can. I mean, I just walked in the door and talked to the guard, and he said, "Let me see your driver's license." And he held that during the time Ken and I were visiting, and then 4.5 hours later, as I exited, he handed me my driver's license, and I was out of there. But it is truly minimal security in this place where Ken is. He gets a lot of sunshine and fresh air, and so it really is a much better situation than it was, months and months ago. And I would invite anybody and everybody, that knows Ken, to arrange to go visit with him. You have to fill out a Bureau of Prisons application form. Ken needs to send that form to you. So, right, I mean, you can't just go visit him out of the blue. But you have to do some paperwork up front, weeks in advance of your visit. And then once you get that clearance or approval from the Bureau of Prisons, then you can go. Then you can just arrange with Ken, when's a good time. Now they do visiting on Saturdays and Sundays. They don't allow visitation Monday through Friday, so it's got to be a weekend visit. Visiting hours, both of those days, it goes from 8 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon. And so I didn't know that. I thought it was from 9 to 1, so I was planning, a 9 to 1 visit, but turned out it was about 9:30 to 2 o'clock. Then we had to leave. But, yeah, that's kind of the situation there. Oh, I wanted to say another word about the Supermax. Their super maximum security is a place where some of the worst criminals, the most violent criminals in our country are held. It's probably the most secure place in America, and perhaps in the world. It is, very, very secure. I can't go into any detail about it. Ken told me some details because he did a little bit of work over there. But it's a place where you might find El Chapo held over there, and
is that where Maduro's
people like that.
going?
Yeah, I don't know about that, but yeah, it could be.
Maduro will probably hang out with Ghislaine Maxwell in a Texas camp, kind of like that.
Yeah, funny story on that. We went in and we didn't know where to go. Actually, when we drove into this big compound, but the agent at the gate, the guard at the gate, he said, "Well, take your third left. You'll get to the penitentiary." And we didn't know there was a difference between a prison camp, and a penitentiary. Well, Ken is not in a penitentiary. That's like a maximum security place. Well, we didn't know that when we first got there. And so, funny story. I walked in. Of course, I walked in with my cargo pants on, and that was part of my the clothes that I had on. Well, my pants were cargo pants, and the gal at the very front office there said, "Sir, you can't wear cargo pants in there. That's what we wear." Meaning the guards. And so I went out and changed into my sweats. I walked in, and she said, "Sir, we can't wear sweats in there either. And you just go to a Walmart and get some normal pants, would you?" And so I went out and I changed into my wife's pants. She had a pair of pants that were not cargo pants. I changed to her pants, and then it came in, and she allowed that. So, and then of course we couldn't find Ken.
Well,
in the
at least we know
penitentiary.
Lowell wears the pants in the family. That's good.
The good news is that we're pretty much the same size. My wife and I are pretty much the same size. So they were a little high. They were like high water pants, but they worked. And then we found out, well, Ken's not in the penitentiary, and that's when I realized that there's and it was explained to me there are 4 different complexes in this compound, and we were at the wrong one. So after spending 45 minutes going through all of that, we finally got directed to the right one, to the prison camp, and that was much less security. I just walked right in and was directed.
Yeah, you might actually be able to wear your sweats in that one, right?
Yeah, I think so. So it was a funny story.
There you have it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is great news, by the way. miraclesingodwetrust.net if you want to learn more about Ken's case and what's happening if you're not all caught up on it. We've interviewed Ken from prison. We've interviewed Ken before, and many times we've kept up on this story, etc. miraclesingodwetrust.net, ladies and gentlemen. And, Donald says he's decreasing income tax for everybody else and everything else. Well, if you decrease it to 0, then nobody would be in jail over it. I think Ken Cromar needs a pardon personally. He's not a threat to anybody else. But we also hear a glimmer of hope, too, coming up. He might be able to get out on an ankle monitor, Lowell.
Yeah, home confinement might be a possibility starting about 13 months from now, February of 2027. Of course, they could shift that date around. You never know what's going to happen exactly when you're in that situation. But that would be a marvelous development where he could just be confined at home with an ankle monitor and be able to see his family. He is no threat he's not a violent actor. He's not, really a threat to society at all. And so that would be a great development. It really would. I asked him, by the way, if he ever felt threatened, if he'd ever been beaten up by other inmates. Well, knowing Ken, he's so good-natured. He's so friendly. He reaches out. He knows people's names. And so far, yeah, he has good friendships with other inmates. He has not been molested. He has not been beaten up. In fact, he's such good friends with some of them. He's even inspirational for them. If you know Ken, he's always encouraging you to do what's right, encouraging you to be your best self. And I could feel that. I mean, there are half a dozen people, inmates that came in at one time or another during our visit, and they all said hello to Ken. Ken said hello to them, and he's a model inmate, Sam, and he just wants you and other people to know how much he appreciates your prayers and your hopes that he gets out soon. Sam?
Are you kidding me? Donald Trump takes a step towards liberty? Ron Paul, LouRockwell.com. We'll talk about that with Lowell Nelson, ladies and gentlemen. I'm working with Lou on our project coming up this Friday in Washington. We'll talk about that too. Hang tight. Liberty Roundtable Live.
Bypass the mainstream narrative with Liberty News Radio at libertynewsradio.com. Engage with charismatic hosts live or on demand. We cover the crucial news focused on God, family, and country. News that other networks simply refuse to use. Think of LNR's hard-hitting news and podcast at your fingertips, anytime, anywhere. Join us at libertynewsradio.com. Empower your day with the truth, because the truth will set you free. libertynewsradio.com.
Introducing Managed IT Services from NPI. We offer top-notch data backup and recovery, email spam protection, and network security tailored to your needs and budget. With 20-plus years of experience in the medical field, our HIPAA-certified consultants know what it takes to protect sensitive information. Don't settle for less. Give us a call at 801-706-6980 and experience the difference with Managed IT Services. Remember, your IT support should be fast, efficient, and reliable.
As the United States boldly stepped forward in the glorious light provided by its new Constitution in 1787, the nations of the earth were in awe of the newfound strength and hope of this free land. Today, the nation stands at a crossroads. A divergence from the original intent put forth in the United States Constitution has brought grave threats to our beloved nation. A miracle is needed if the United States is to survive. That miracle is again the pure application of the United States Constitution. I'm Scott Bradley. In my To Preserve the Nation book and lecture series, I bring forth truths that will help raise up a new generation of statesmen like those noble Americans who founded this land. Vigorous application of these principles will invigorate and restore the nation, and we may become again the freest, most prosperous, most respected, and happiest nation on earth. Visit topreservethenation.com to begin that restoration.
Hey, Lowell, I hear that Donald Trump has become an honorary Doobie Brother. Is that true?
I haven't heard that. How could that happen?
Ladies and gentlemen, here's the deal. Donald Trump takes a step towards liberty, writes Ron Paul, LouRockwell.com. President Trump recently signed the order. Tell us about it, Lowell.
Well, the executive order changed marijuana from a Schedule I drug to a Schedule III drug or compound. I'm calling it a compound. And what that means is it doesn't mean that the federal law criminalizing the use of marijuana has been changed or repealed. That would be a congressional action. But this executive order does facilitate research into the medical or the health benefits of marijuana. And there are several. There's a few. I mean, people on epilepsy, for example, can benefit from the use of marijuana, and it has, I've heard sworn testimony from people who have been, in a condition which they've been almost non-functional, but then through the use of marijuana, they've been able to become functional people again, and felt healthy again. So there must be some, I haven't studied it deeply. I just know that it can be helpful for some people, and so this change will allow more research into the possible medical and health benefits of marijuana.
Dr. Paul, I'm not an advocate for I'm not an advocate for marijuana, especially when it comes to social or whatever drug use for recreational. I'm not for that. But I'm not also for the federal government having any authority over it whatsoever. They don't have any jurisdiction. But I bring this up because I think that medical research is valuable. To act like this marijuana plant is worse than like heroin or something like that, or on that kind of level, is insanity. It's got to stop. And I do know, for example, some autistic children or young adults that are nonverbal, and they're like almost impossible to deal with. They're very strong, and they're not even able to really be at home with the caregivers unless the caregiver is really strong. They do, but when they give them medical marijuana, then pretty soon they relax, and it's easier to care for them at home and things. And so, where the value is and how much, I'm not an expert. I'm not a doctor. But I will say this idea that it's like heroin or something crazy is just wrong. It's just crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And the war on drugs is an absolute failure as well. And so I think it's a good move. I was joking about the Doobie Brothers. It was just kind of a joke because of the marijuana story. But anyway, all I'm telling you is, Trump wants to be part of everybody. And so there you go. But it's an interesting change. It's a good change. It's a necessary change. And let's let the research come out. Hopefully Bobby Kennedy can lead and be involved in a lot of this, and we can have truth tellers for it. Lowell.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Ron Paul writes, the war on drugs has been a primary excuse for violations of liberties, including unconstitutional searches and seizures, no-knock raids, bank reports to the federal government on those making large cash deposits, and a draconian mandatory minimum sentences. The drug war has been used to justify foreign interventions, such as President Trump's current actions against Venezuela. And by the way, Sam, Ken mentioned that probably 80-90% of the people in his prison camp are there because of drug charges. So you could save either $5 million or $5 billion a year just by letting those prisoners go free again. And
drug charges are IRS charges, right, Lowell?
Yeah, those are probably the two main things. Paul writes, the most important reason to end the drug war is that government has no moral right to stop adults from engaging in a peaceful, even if it, albeit unwise, behavior like smoking marijuana. Laws prohibiting drug use have no place in a free society. A government that can stop people from smoking marijuana is a government that can also mandate what vaccines we receive and how our children are educated. End of quote. Yeah, so it's really not a good thing.
And we're not advocating for drugs, and neither is Ron Paul, but what we are advocating for is liberty. And there's no constitutional jurisdiction for the general government to even classify marijuana or any sort. I mean, it's like pretty soon they're like, hey, you can't have ginger because all I'm saying is if we're not very careful, that's where this leads. Where does the general government get authority in the first place for this? And the answer is it doesn't exist, Lowell.
Yeah, it does not exist, and he would explain that to his constituents when he, campaigned to return to Congress in 1996. And he would explain the government has no authority to outlaw drugs, and that the police state being built to stop drug use threatens all of our liberty. And in other words, Sam, his position was not pro-drug; it was pro-liberty, and there's a key difference there. So we're not saying people should be able to, use the drugs, recreational. We're not pro-drug, but we are pro-liberty, and because the Constitution did not grant Congress any authority to outlaw, the use of drugs or these compounds, then they just have no authority to do that. So.
But Congress doesn't even have authority to make legislative effort to do that, though it's not within their jurisdiction by any means. They've been given narrow definitions of what they have authority or delegated responsibility for. This is not one of them.
Right.
What I find interesting about this also is this. We're not advocating for drugs, folks. Let's be very clear. But we are trying to get you to understand government jurisdictional limits and boundaries. And if you want to compare it to alcohol, they understood this regarding that, right, Lowell?
They did, because they passed a constitutional amendment, or Amendment 18 to the Constitution, allowing for the creation, the sale, the distribution of alcohol. Right? They understood back then that the Constitution didn't allow the federal government to prohibit the use of alcohol. And so they amended the Constitution. Well, they don't do that anymore, right? They just go ahead and pass a law. They amend the Constitution without amending it, and which is absolutely wrong, flat out wrong. So the federal government does not have any authority in this area. This is a domestic issue, it's not an issue that the federal government should be putting its nose into at all.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. And I would say this, doctors can prescribe all kinds of medications for different reasons. And to me, this at the least should be left up to physicians and other people to maintain. I don't really like the legalization or illegalization of drugs or alcohol or anything else. I simply think that if you aren't causing any problems with anybody else, you're not breaking any of the 10 commandments and stuff like that, the government shouldn't really have any involvement in your life whatsoever, whether you're involved in using those substances or not. I'm not for your use. I'm just telling you that I realize government needs to have appropriate limitations. We need limitations with regards to government overreach more than we need limitations on we the people at this point. Connor Boyack, our dear friend, speaks out very boldly, and Dr. Scott Bradley and I last hour broke this down in great detail, but Connor agrees with us, and I'm sure Lowell is on board as well. We're talking about Maduro capture. Lowell?
Yeah, it's absolutely wrong for the federal government to go and encroach in the sovereignty of another country, kidnap their leaders, basically, and bring them into the United States for, imprisonment or worse. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do with them, but it's absolutely wrong. They have no authority to do that, and yet that's what Trump administration did. Connor writes that Maduro's capture illustrates what I believe is one of the biggest problems in politics, right? People frequently treat principles as costumes. They wear them when they're convenient, but they discard them when they're costly. So Connor's worked in and around politics for nearly 20 years, and he has seen this pattern play out again and again, over and over, this pattern where politicians treat principles like costumes. And so he writes this, quote, "The U.S. military carried out strikes in Caracas and captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, flying them to New York in what the administration is framing as a kind of a law enforcement operation." Well, most people claim to stand for a consistent set of ideas, such as constitutional restraint, limited government, and so forth. But the problem is that they're often inconsistent, especially when the outcome is emotionally satisfying. And he writes, "Today proved that again. People who claim to champion the Constitution suddenly ignore its restraints on executive power and, when pressed, point to court precedent, congressional statutes, and past presidential deviations as if those things are the Constitution." And, they claim, they cite the Barbary...
those things trump the Constitution, right?
Yeah, like a law passed by Congress, such as the authorization for the use of military force, which Congress passed, which, changes the Constitution, but it shouldn't have. It should have been null and void when that thing was passed, because it wasn't, you can't amend the Constitution with a congressional statute. There's a specific way to amend the Constitution, and that's not it. So anyway, the Constitution gives Congress the power to declare war, but there's no targeted strikes or anything of the like that are separately authorized for the president to execute as his whim. Now, we've talked before, Sam, you and I, several times about letters of marque and reprisal. I mean, if they wanted to issue a letter of marque or reprisal about Maduro, they could have done so. And then the president would have been authorized, and privateers would have been authorized to go do that dirty work. But Congress didn't authorize that letter. They had nothing to say. It's just the president up and on a whim says, "Yep, we're going to go kidnap Maduro," and it's just flat out wrong. So, and then the other thing that Connor talked about in his column here was that historically these things go terribly wrong. Like when Saddam was deposed from Iraq, and when Gaddafi fell from Libya. Those places just turned into chaos. Sam?
We got a lot more to talk about regarding this, ladies and gentlemen. One of the folks I'm most disappointed in is Senator Mike Lee, my senator. Why after the pause? We've talked about it a little bit last hour, but we'll drill into this a little bit more as well. Folks, we've got to have constitutional vanguards. We got to have people on the wall. We got to have truth tellers. Where are they? I'm one of them. Lowell's certainly one of them as well. CampaignForLiberty.org. Check out Ron Paul's incredible article. Check out these discussions from Connor Boyack and others. You're watching Liberty Roundtable live.
How would you like to help this program reach more people and earn silver at the same time? Call or text 801-669-2211 for complete details.
Breaking news this hour from Town Hall. I'm Rich Thomason. As of today, Tim Walz is a dropout. His state reeling from the massive Somali fraud scandal. The Minnesota governor has announced he will not be seeking a third term as the state's chief executive. He is dropping out of the race. Up till now, Walz tried to hang the scandal on President Trump.
This is what happens when your own federal government wages war against you. This is what happens when they target communities for their own benefit. This is what happens when they scapegoat.
That was a month ago when Walz was still in the race. He says he can no longer devote the energy needed to win another term, even as he says he's confident he could win. So now comes the question of who will jump into the gubernatorial race. A person close to Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar says that she is considering a run for governor of Minnesota. There's also no shortage of interested Republicans. Around a dozen of them are already in the race. Deposed Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro and his wife making their first court appearance today in New York City. The couple's been indicted on drug trafficking, narco-terrorism, and other charges. They were captured over the weekend in that lightning-fast U.S. military raid in Caracas. Vice President Vance and his family were not at home when this happened.
Secret Service agents say a man who broke the windows of Vice President Vance's Ohio home and caused other property damage has been detained. Two law enforcement officials say the man broke a window with a hammer and tried to enter the house. The home in Cincinnati's Walnut Hills neighborhood was unoccupied. Vance and his family were not in Ohio. The Secret Service is working with local police and the U.S. Attorney's Office on possible charges. Vance's office says his family is back in Washington. I'm Haya Panjwani.
The rally rolls on Wall Street. The Dow is up 640 points, a gain of more than 1%. More on these stories, townhall.com.
It's Mike Gallagher wishing you a Happy New Year. If you're like most people, this is the week you look at your budget and think, all right, time to get things under control. Here's one of the smartest ways to start 2026. Call my friends at Fellowship Home Loans. They can help lower your monthly mortgage payment. And yes, you can still skip your next two payments. Imagine not making a mortgage payment in January or February. That's how you create real financial breathing room. If you need some cash to pay off high-interest credit cards from the holidays, a cash-out refinance might just be perfect for you. And if you prefer a line of credit, Fellowship's new fixed-rate HELOC gives you funds fast with a rate that never changes. Start the year on solid footing. I've used Fellowship personally. I trust these guys. Before the January bills hit, go to fellowshiphomeloans.com/MikeG, fellowshiphomeloans.com/MikeG, or call 800-510-MIKE, 800-510-6453, fellowshiphomeloans.com/MikeG. Fellowship Home Loans, mortgage lending by the book.
Nationwide Mortgage Bankers, DBA Fellowship Home Loans, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS number 819382.
Why don't we say to the government writ large that they have to spend a little bit less? Anybody ever had less money this year than you had last? Anybody better have a 1% pay cut? You deal with it. That's what government needs, a 1% pay cut. If you take a 1% pay cut across the board, you have more than enough money to actually pay for the disaster relief. But nobody's going to do that because they're fiscally irresponsible. Who are they? Republicans. Who are they? Democrats. Who are they? Virtually the whole body is careless and reckless with your money. So the money will not be offset by cuts anywhere. The money will be added to the debt, and there will be a day of reckoning. What's the day of reckoning? The day of reckoning may well be the collapse of the stock market. The day of reckoning may be the collapse of the dollar. When it comes, I can't tell you exactly, but I can tell you it has happened repeatedly in history when countries ruin their currency.
Introducing PrepStartsNow.com, your ultimate guide to readiness and peace of mind. We offer practical preparedness tools, training, and education to take your family's household readiness to the next level. Browse the prep shop for essential products, check out our planning guides, and stay informed with our prep blog. Visit PrepStartsNow.com and subscribe to our emails for exclusive offers, new products, and future events. Remember, preparedness begins with PrepStartsNow.com.
Former Sheriff Richard Mack recounts in his book The Proper Role of Law Enforcement how he came to realize while working as a beat cop how wrong the all-too-common orientation of police officers is when they think of their job as being to write tickets and arrest people. Richard Mack tells of his personal transformation from by-the-number cop to Constitution-conscious defender of citizen safety and freedoms. Learn what it really means to serve and protect. Purchase your copy at cspoa.org. That's cspoa.org.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Liberty Roundtable Live. My name is Lowell Nelson. I'm riding shotgun this morning with your host, Sam Bushman. We were just talking about the events in Venezuela, the kidnapping of Maduro and his wife, and the fact that the federal government has no authority to do such a thing. None. And they shouldn't be doing it. But apparently the end justifies the means in the minds of lots of people. And they think, well, we took another drug runner off the chessboard, so it must be okay. But what they don't realize is that, one encroachment on the Constitution is followed, it becomes a precedent. And so if Trump can go capture, some bad guy, and Maduro probably is a bad guy, and kidnap him from his country, just think what the next president might do. And it just gets worse and worse.
Well, what if somebody snuck in and just picked up old Benjamin Netanyahu? He's got war crime allegations and war crime indictments already against him. What if somebody snuck in and got that done, or somebody snuck in and took Trump or something? This is unprecedented. It's very, very dangerous indeed. Mike Lee first came out and said, hey, this is blatantly unconstitutional. And then he backed off and he went, well, hey, I think the president might have authority to do this under, Article 2 or whatever. I disagree. I don't read in any way that the president has authority to do this. But what Lee's position has backed off to now is, well, it's been done so often, it's kind of become, a precedent. And so therefore it's okay. And my response is Lee, a constitutional attorney, a man who was even considered for the Supreme Court, a man that's been a senator for a couple of terms now and everything else. Hey, if anybody should hold the line in the sand, it should be Lee. He doesn't need to attack Trump, but he needs to say this is unconstitutional. Congress should have been asked first. Congress didn't even find out about this until after the fact. That is problematic, and I'm disappointed in not standing up on that point, Lowell.
Yeah, I agree with you, Sam. Mike Lee knows better, and he should stand up for the Constitution. That's what he took an oath to defend, the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And so the greatest encroachments and abridgments of the Constitution occur and are made by domestic actors, right? You look at your own government. You look at the Patriot Act, the Homeland Security Act, and all of the various, congressional encroachments on your liberty. They're being imposed on us by our own representatives, our own congressmen. That's where the biggest encroachments are coming. They're not coming from outside. Those are just excuses. Those are the boogeymen that people put out there to give them an excuse to go and encroach upon your liberty. And it's simply not right, Sam. And Mike Lee knows better. He really should stand up like a Thomas Massey and just say, look, the Constitution doesn't authorize this. It's wrong, and you shouldn't have done that, Trump.
And they're trying to say because Maduro's a bad guy, the ends justify the means. I agree that Maduro's a bad guy. However, why can't we get Congress to go aboard with this? And if Congress won't go aboard with this, then our Constitution is designed to say we ought not do it then. The goal was to prevent anybody unilaterally from having too much authority or power or taking action that we would regret on the international stage. That's kind of the problem. Now, Connor Boyack asks a very vital question that I think is at the core of this, Lowell.
Yeah, let's see, which question do you mean? Go ahead and ask it, Sam.
He says this, quote, where exactly is the constitutional provision authorizing the president to invade another country and depose its leader?
Mm-hmm.
That's an important question, Lowell. Where's the authority? And the answer is it doesn't exist. Congress doesn't even really have that authority to violate sovereign nations and do this, right?
That's right. I mean, even a letter of marque and reprisal can only be justified if there have been attacks on, initiated by somebody who's not part of the country, right? I mean, it's like the Barbary pirates. They're not associated with any country, but if they're out there beating up on your people and enslaving them, then you just issue a letter of marque and reprisal. So I don't know if Congress would have the authority to issue one on Maduro. Because, I mean, if he wants to grow a drug and sell it on the world market, I mean, he should be able to do that. And we should just mind our own business and not tell him, that he can't do that. That's my position.
Well, China and Mexico are the drug conduit for fentanyl, the worst drug we've ever known, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see us ready to take out the Chinese president or the Mexican president over this. And so it's very strange to me. It has origins in oil. The dollar's tanking. We got to get control of oil because our dollar's tied to the petrodollar, or, fuel dollar, the oil dollar, instead of constitutional currency. I think that has something to do with it. I think really that, in my opinion, when we talk about this, hey, where does the president get authority to do this? There's no constitutional provision allowing the president or Congress to do this at all. Right? And what we're going to have, and this is the blowback principle when Ron Paul ran in 2008 and 12, when he was on the campaign stage in the debates, and he highlighted, we're going to have this CIA documented principle called blowback. And as America continues to be kind of the homogeneous nation where they think they can control everything in the world, other nations are getting sick of it, though. This isn't just a, hey, let's stop the drug question or problem. And my last question would be this, Lowell. Think about this for a second. If we've locked down the border like we've claimed, there's not drugs coming into America, Lowell. Either we've locked down the border like we've claimed and there's coming into America, or we might have stopped the illegal alien invasion, but we haven't stopped the drug invasion. And then my question would be, why not? How are they getting drugs across the border left and right when people can't cross the border? Do the drugs just come across the border all by themselves, or are there people with them? At some point, it doesn't make sense. There's a massive disconnect here, Lowell. Am I crazy?
No, you're not crazy. Back when Clinton was governor of Arkansas, I think the CIA would fly drugs into the private airport there in Arkansas, and that's how they got them in.
Would you leave me out of this, Lowell? I have nothing to do with that.
So there are multiple ways of getting drugs into the country. And just because you have the border locked down doesn't mean the drugs don't still come in. So I don't know.
Then how do we know people aren't still coming in the same way as the drugs are then?
Yeah, we don't know. So
see, I'm not very smart, folks. I'm one of those I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I make real questions. And I'm just kind of saying, hey, if we've got the border locked down, are drugs coming in without people? And if so, how? And so to me, that's where we need to spend our time. We don't need to spend our time sinking boats on the high seas. So the other interesting question about this, Lowell, is this. If you're a low-level drug runner on the high seas with a boat, they'll just literally kill you and sink you. No trial, nothing for you. If you're their leader and their crime boss, then you're going to be brought to America and treated like a king and get a fair trial. What's up with that?
Yeah, that's not fair. Not fair at all, Sam.
Just make sure if you're a global drug dealer that you're a kingpin. Otherwise, you're done for. See, my problem is this due process. How do we afford due process to this guy Maduro, but we don't afford process to the guy that ran the drug boat for him or for somebody else for that matter? Or all I'm saying is very, very strange, right?
Well, and Maduro's not going to get due process either. I mean, look at Julian Assange. He didn't get due process.
He's going to get the appearance of due process where these other guys just get death.
Yeah, the appearance of. I would agree with that. He'll get the appearance of due process, but I don't know what's going to happen to him because apparently, I don't know. I think you're right. I think oil and the petrodollar is probably one of the biggest reasons we're in Venezuela again. So we'll see where this goes, Bob.
It's one thing to take out a leader and say, hey, we had to stop this criminal activity on the high seas and all this kind of stuff. The other question that I would ask is this question. Where do we go from here? We're going to run their country now? So is Donald Trump the president of Venezuela? Or the fact is there's this lady there now or somebody that's like the VP of flat out socialist in charge now that claims they'll work with Trump. I mean, have we just gone from the frying pan into the fire, Lowell?
Well, plus Trump has added Mexico and Cuba to the list, right? And he wants to expand what he thinks is the Monroe Doctrine in our Western Hemisphere, and he is not going to allow Cuba and Mexico and anybody else, Venezuela, to run drugs. So, I mean, it's I don't know, it's just out of hand, Sam. And this is a precedent.
Pigs Round 2 coming up?
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? I don't know. You know, he says he's doing it for the people of Venezuela. He's doing it he would do it for the people of Cuba. You know, and maybe that would be a brief respite from the oppression that they're now suffering. But what happens, as Connor pointed out in his article, is that the place just falls apart. You know, it becomes a chaotic place, and worse things like in Iraq, it spiraled into insurgency, sectarian civil war, mass death, displacement, and the conditions that gave rise to ISIS. Right, and so that's been
all
the CIA.
I can tell you is it's disaster, folks. And unless we maintain a strong presence there by force, eventually somebody else will fill the vacuum. And I pray it's nobody worse, but predict from history that that's what will be the case. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been telling you government school's been a cesspool of destruction for your children for some time. There's some interesting people agreeing with me now. Let's talk about it with Lowell Nelson, campaignforliberty.org. We'll do it all on Liberty Roundtable Live.
Attention collectors and savvy investors. We are excited to announce a momentous evolution in our journey. Introducing Free Water Coin Company, formerly known as Rust Coin and Gift. This rebranding takes us back to the very roots of where it all began, Free Water, Oregon. It's a tribute to the legacy of Al Rust and a celebration of 3 generations of dedication to excellence in the world of coins and precious gifts. Al, Brian, and Jake Rust standing strong through 64 years of service. Discover a world of exceptional service at Free Water Coin Company, your premier destination for genuine, honest money and precious gifts. Under Brian's expert guidance, Free Water Coin Company, building on the legacy of Rust Coin and Gift, continues its tradition of trust and excellence. Visit us at our Provo, Utah location. Explore our treasures online at freewatercoinco.com or call us at 801-377-1574. Free Water Coin Company, where your future is built one honest coin at a time.
Get ready to be part of something incredible. We're breaking barriers and delivering the powerful stories that mainstream media won't touch. Your support is what fuels our mission to revolutionize journalism and bring you the truth. Join our passionate community of changemakers by donating at libertynewsradio.com today. Together, we're creating the future of news.
Do you know what is great about America? Ask an Immigrant. Ask an Immigrant is a new podcast dedicated to helping Americans, especially our youth, value, appreciate, and be grateful for the freedoms we have here in America. Join host Lydia Wallace-Nuttall as she interviews immigrants from around the world to discover their inspiring personal stories about why they came to America. To learn more about why America is the most prosperous, greatest country in the world, download the Loving Liberty app or go to lovingliberty.net.
Okay, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, this is Lowell Nelson, co-hosting, a guest of Sam Bushman here on Liberty Roundtable Live today. Sam Bushman is your host. Okay. Hey, Christina Bogguss. She's a member of the Utah State Board of Education. She has been fighting the good fight on that board, wrestling with the statists and educators who for some reason thinks that the public school system offers the best educational opportunities for our children. Well, she is now saying what Sam Bushman has been saying for decades. But, hearing it from a friend who sincerely thought she could improve the public school system years ago and got involved, became a member of the State Board of Education, hearing what she said about it is really quite inspirational. And so I want to read it to you, and we can talk about it. My fellow citizens of District 8 and the great state of Utah, today I declare without apology or hesitation that I will not seek re-election to the Utah State Board of Education. I am done lending my name, my vote, and my silence to a broken, corrupt, and morally bankrupt system that no longer serves the children or families of this state. The corruption inside the Utah State Board of Education and the broader educational establishment is not subtle. It is brazen, pervasive, and rotting the soul of public education. Nearly every decision is now driven by not-so-hidden agendas, political cowardice, financial kickbacks, and raw personal ambition, not by what is best for students. The Board of Education has become a closed club that wages open war on the minds, values, and innocence of our children while systematically stripping parents of any meaningful voice. This is more than mere incompetence. It is betrayal on a grand scale by the very people you elected. Layer upon layer of dysfunction, mirrored and magnified in the Utah legislature, has turned governance into a circus of gridlock, self-preservation, and faux theatrical outrage that accomplishes nothing. Good ideas are buried, brave voices are punished, and the status quo is protected at all costs. The chaos is not accidental. It is the design of those who profit from it. I ran for this office to fight for you, for your children, your values, and your right to be heard. Instead, I have been forced to watch as even the loudest so-called conservative voices fold, trade their voices for favor and money, or abandon every promise they made on the campaign trail. The Republican Party platform means nothing inside those walls. The word of the Lord means even less. Your concerns about pornography in libraries, radical gender ideology in classrooms, the erosion of academic excellence, and the assaults on parental rights are mocked, ignored, or drowned out by the shrill demands of special interests and the timid silence of those who fear losing their seat more than losing their soul. I will not play this game.
If you try to go down to your school board and talk about it, they'll call the FBI and sick the FBI on you, won't they, Lowell?
That's what they did in the past 5 years, Sam. Christina continues her statement here. I will not play this game any longer. I refuse to be a prop in their theater of fake reform. Serving the families and students of District 8 has been a great honor. You trusted me, you believed in me, and I have fought with everything I have. But the weight of the corruption, the chaos, and the spiritual abuse I have witnessed has become unbearable. Walking away is not surrender. It is the only honest act left to me, and a blazing call for the reckoning this state so desperately needs. My final message to every parent in Utah is blunt and urgent. Get your children out of Utah's government schools as quickly as possible. Real change is not coming. The system is not broken. It is working exactly as the corrupt intend it to work. Your children's minds, hearts, and futures are not safe inside it. With unyielding resolve and unwavering love for the families of District 8, Christina Bogguss. End of quote.
All I can tell you is she's an American hero and she's spot on. I would just take a step even further back from her critical, valuable, truth-telling analysis, which is this. Remember, government education for all at the expense of stolen money, meaning the taxpayers, is part of the Communist Manifesto. It's the 10th plank Communist Manifesto. It's compulsory education for all. That's not part of our documents. That's not part of our appropriate delegation of authority to limited constitutional government law. So she's right on, but her point at the start was, hey, we all want it to go well, and this is an assault on it. No. The second you put government education in place, you're promoting the Communist Manifesto. 10 planks make a nation communist. The 10th one is this government-mandated controlled education. Are we surprised it's off the rails, Lowell? No, we're not.
Not at all, Sam. We are doing exactly what the Communist Manifesto wants us to do here in Utah. And her bold statement here is get your children out of the public schools as quickly as possible. That's what she is saying. And she's served in her own school, in the local schools. She served on the State Board of Education. She is a patriot. She is rock solid. And she's telling us to get our children out of school.
This as well. One last point on this, then we got a couple of other stories to crank on. Sorry to interrupt, Lowell. I just want to get to things here.
Yeah.
From the American Family Association, though, by the way, Tim Wildman just sent me an email, and here's his question to back up what she's saying. Should atheists teach our kids? Should Muslims teach our kids? That's for starters. And then you dovetail that with her comments, and you get it. You got to get out of the government school. I don't care where you are in the country. It's all part of the Communist Manifesto. A couple of quick stories left, Lowell.
Yeah, real quickly, Adam Dick has a great article at ronpaulinstitute.org. He's talking about the Surgeon General of Florida, whose name is Latipo. Well, Latipo is challenging Floridians to a 50-day challenge, basically to be well, to get lots of exercise, to eat healthful foods. It's, do proven activities, focus on health, nutrition, movement, wellness, and stress management. And so 50 days, it's called the 50-day challenge, and so I welcome that. I think that's fantastic. He is the one, by the way, who refused to mandate the COVID kill shots, to people in Florida. He did not. He was swimming upstream against the mainstream during the COVID scamdemic, and Latipo is really a good guy, and so that's a great story out of Florida. Sam, any comments about that?
Well, I can just say this. We want good health instead of special interests, and I really thought our FKJR was going to get that done, but I haven't heard much from him lately. And I think he's been doing some marvelous things in terms of backing off on some of the vaccine mandates. I think they're doing a lot in terms of opening up research, and I think they're doing a lot of good stuff. We need more and we need faster, though, I'll tell you that, because it's as corrupt as everything else, Lowell.
Yeah, the one warning that Adam Dick says about this Floridian 50-day challenge is he doesn't want this to turn into a government mandate, right? And it's one thing to recommend that people live healthy, he writes. It is another to mandate that they attend exercise classes or eat their veggies, right?
Yeah, it
and
gets
so I agree with that.
in a hurry, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. And so, in fact, government should not even be recommending that we eat our veggies. I'm a big proponent of eating fresh vegetables and fruit, Sam, but that it shouldn't be the government recommending that. You just look at the crazy food group recommendations from the USDA over the past few decades. They're recommending stuff that's not healthy, and yet a lot of people conformed to that, and then schools took those recommendations, implemented them. Well, they're not good recommendations.
Schools and mandates, and if we're not careful, we'll abolish the education department. The health department will mandate food in your government school. We think we're getting rid of the education department, but if we're not very careful, we, in theory, in name only, get rid of the education department, but we move all these different authorities and powers and whatever you want to call it unconstitutionally to some of these other agencies like the health department. You put a Joe Biden and company in charge of the health department, and have Jill in charge of your health care kid government-controlled lunch. I mean, look out, people. I'm telling you right now, it's going off the rails faster than you can shake a stick at it. Final article, I thought we didn't censure, Lowell.
Well, this is censure, not censor. So Amelia Powers Gardner served as our Utah County clerk and is now serving as Utah County commissioner. But she was censured by the Utah County Republican Party on New Year's Day. At least that was the date on the statement of censure. The complaint was filed early last year, and then the investigation pretty much took all the rest of the year. What did she do? Well, she claimed residence in Senate District 21 so she could vote in the special election convention to fill the vacant seat in that Senate district. And she was living in Lehigh at the time, which was not in Senate District 21. She had recently moved from Pleasant Grove, which was in Senate District 21. And when her credential was challenged at the special election, which involved about 250 county delegates in that Senate district, she doubled down, Sam, and she testified. She told everybody in that meeting, in that convention, that she lived in Pleasant Grove. And yet, when investigators afterwards learned that she had moved to Lehigh a month or so earlier, I was there, Sam. I heard her testimony. I heard the challenge. And I voted to uphold the challenge because those people that brought the challenge seemed to have the evidence that placed her residence in Lehigh, but the body voted to credential her so she could vote in the election, which she did. So the complaint was filed, and now she is censured. And by the way, Sam, she just issued a statement that she is not going to run for re-election here in Utah County. Sam?
Well, we see a little bit of cleanup, ladies and gentlemen. but a lot of good people are leaving too, so we need to be very careful, and we need to be anxiously engaged in a good cause 24/7. We ought not be compelled to do so. We ought to look at God, family, and country as a sacred responsibility and duty. That's exactly what they do over at campaignforliberty.org and Ron Paul Institute. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Thank you, Lowell. Great work. We appreciate you, and welcome back, sir. We're going to be truth-telling all year long. That's what we do on Liberty Roundtable Live. God save the Republic.